I tend to like really rubbish TV series, and not just like trashy TV, although it is trashy TV, but like really bad ITV detective dramas that no one else watches apart from your granny. But don't tell anyone I said that.
Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all our friends tuning in from around the world to the third episode of the Bois Café. I'm your host Akash and I'm joined by my co-host Ramu, and today we have with us the writer and presenter of TIFO Football for the Athletic UK, Jon Mackenzie, joining with us. Hi Jon, how are you?
Hello guys, how are you doing?
All good, Jon. How is the heat waves in UK now?
Yeah, it's less warm than it was, but I'm on the third floor of a terraced house, and it's very warm up here. So, yeah, I'll be slowly perspiring away in the video, I'm afraid. But I hope that's okay.
No worries, Jon. That's okay. We understand. Before we start, we just wanted to thank Jon because he's just back from vacation and he made time for us. So thank you, Jon, for doing that. For the ones who don't know about Jon Mackenzie, he is now working with TIFO Football. We did a little digging, Jon, because you were joining in as a guest. And I came to know about you that in the initial years of your career, you were a professor for philosophy, if I'm not wrong. And then you made a switch to the sports media. So how did that jump to sports media happen? And then how did you make the jump to TIFO then, joined TIFO 2 months back? So could you share something about that?
Yeah, so I was originally planning on being an academic, as you say, working in philosophy and theology, and got quite a long way into it. I was about 13 years in academia in the end, in higher education. So, but got to a point where I was actually doing more sports journalism around the edges of my actual job than I was my actual job, and enjoying it much more as well. So eventually was lucky enough to be given an editorship for an online outlet. Did that for a little while until they moved into gaming, completely away from football. Then I did some freelance stuff. I've worked for a few different companies. I've written for a few different outlets, and most recently I was doing work as a head of content for a company called Analytics FC, who are a football data company that people may have heard of. And then, lucky enough a couple of months ago to get the gig at TIFO. So still very much early doors for me at TIFO, but very much enjoying it.
A wonderful journey. I was seeing one of your pod, I think you did 2 weeks ago, I think with a Leeds fan. And I came to know that, first thing that you said, like you said about Analytics FC. So in the community also, FPL community, we have two groups that are there. One is Analytics FC and one is Grass FC. Grass FC are the ones who do not believe in all the stats. They are the one who believe in eye test. And then we have the Analytics FC who believe in all the stats, XG and how many shots are they taking, all that. So when I was going through your profile, I saw Analytics FC. And then through the video that you did with the Leeds fan, I'm forgetting his name, I'm sorry. But I came to know that you have your own company called All Stats Aren't We, right? And so is that around Leeds, or can you share something about that?
Yeah, so All Stats Aren't We is a media outlet. We're still going, focusing on Leeds, but focusing on the tactics and the stats in particular. I started it back at the end of the 18-19 season, the first season that Marcelo Bielsa was at Leeds United. And that was a big impetus for me to actually start an outlet, because I felt as though there was definitely a niche there that wasn't being filled, of people who might be interested in some of the ways that managers and recruitment departments are operating in world football at the moment. So, we started that back then. It's been, I guess we've been 3-4 seasons now. It's coming into our fourth season, and it's still going. It's growing, and we've built a really good team of smart people who have really good takes on Leeds. So I really enjoy doing that. I don't do that as much now because obviously I'm I'm full time with TIFO, but
TIFO.
I still enjoy talking about Leeds with my friends, and a lot of my good friends are Leeds fans. So that's I guess you guys will know what it's like talking football with your friends in these sorts of contexts. So.
Yes. Before moving on, John, we wanted to know about your favorite club, the team that you support in UK, because you have been living in London now. So, which is that team the EPL team that you support?
Yeah, so no surprises, but the team that I support is Leeds United. So I've been supporting them in a real way, I think, since 1994, which was when there was a World Cup on. And I remember getting into football around then and being on holiday with family friends who were from Leeds, and we played Brazil versus England every day that holiday, and England weren't even in the World Cup, so goodness knows how they got there. But we decided that I liked football, and if I liked football, then I had to like Leeds United, because if you like football, then you like Leeds United. So yeah, that was back then. How old would I have been? About 9 years old, I guess, then. And yeah, Leeds stuck. In 1995, Leeds signed Tony Yeboah, and that was it for me. I was hooked. It was Leeds forever. I've had various levels of flirtation with the club since then. There's been lots of downs, more downs than ups, I'd say, since I started supporting them. But always followed them to different degrees, and obviously that peaked with Marcelo Bielsa, and that was definitely my favourite period of Leeds United history. But still there now. They can't get rid of me that easily.
Right.
So I'm not sure if
at least I think you do not fear any sort of problems that you see with other clubs having issues with the owners. How good, or how do you think the owners have changed the whole perspective about the football club?
Yeah, this is an interesting question. I think as owners go there, Andrea Radrizzani is fine. I think they were quite lucky in falling on Marcelo Bielsa, because until that point we were just sort of, hanging around at the lower tier, the lower reaches of the second tier in English football. And yeah, with that period we had with Bielsa, it's just completely changed the context now of the club. So it's funny now, because we've in many respects there's a bit of a culture war that's going on at Leeds United right now, because for so many of us Leeds fans, we will never experience a love of the club and the team and the players and the manager as we did under Bielsa. But unfortunately you can't choose what happens at your club all the time. Sometimes you have to go through periods that are a little bit less exciting, and the Jesse Marsch era is definitely that for me. So it's sort of tough moving from a context where everything about the club was exciting and people liked it and it was interesting and it was different, and now it just feels maybe that we've become just another lower Premier League side. A little bit, which I know I don't want to be dismissive, because I know that there's a lot of football fans who would love to see their team playing in the Premier League, but the Premier League is a funny beast at the moment. So you have to stay in at all costs, and that sometimes comes to the detriment of enjoying the football.
Talking about going through a lesser exciting period, we both are Manchester United fans. So we completely know how it is when there is a downward phase for the club. And you said that you started supporting Leeds. So we have heard so much about the rivalry between Manchester United and Leeds United, right?
Yeah, well, I don't think the rivalry has existed at least in a competitive sense for a long time now. Obviously, I mean, it's coming on 20 years since that rivalry existed, but. Yeah, do I have any memories? I don't know. It's funny. I guess you grow up and you hate Manchester United, right? Especially because they're so successful, and obviously they were just across the Pennines from us. So the Pennines is like a mountain stretch that separates Lancashire and Yorkshire, and there was always that rivalry there. And yeah, I think it's probably the biggest rivalry that we have. I don't think that will ever change, but it's been interesting seeing other rivalries sort of crop up. So even just weird ones like Brentford a lot of Leeds fans don't like Brentford because we had they were going for promotion at the same time as us, and everyone was a little bit nervous they were going to catch us up and things like that. And rivalries with Sheffield United as well. But there's also a long-standing rivalry with Chelsea as well that stems back to I think it was an FA Cup final where there was some fights between the players and stuff. So yeah, it's funny how these rivalries crop up.
Right. Before we go into the details of Leeds United, Tottenham and Manchester United that we are going to cover today on our pod, we felt that our listeners would like to see the person that you are, because everyone has seen you on TIFO and seen the amazing analysis that you do about the latest one that I saw was about Ten Hag. So we have a section called Know the Manager, where we have a rapid fire lined up, and it has around 10 to 15 questions. We wouldn't take much time. We'll just run it past, and hoping to have quick answers from you as well, John, before we get started with the detailed analysis of all the teams. So let me know when you are ready, and I can start firing the questions.
Let's go for it.
Okay. So the first one, John, is what's your favorite football memory?
Oh. That's a good question. I think probably the first game under Marcelo Bielsa, when we played against Stoke and we'd been rubbish for years and years and years, and over the 6 weeks or something we just became amazing. And yeah, and then maybe other than that, the Pablo Hernandez goal against Swansea, which pretty much guaranteed that we were getting promoted back to the Premier League.
Promoted. Right. Okay. What is that one place that you would suggest everyone to visit when they are in Scotland?
Well, I think that Edinburgh is the best city in the UK as a place to visit. But I went to university in St Andrews in Scotland as well. So if you're in Edinburgh, take the day trip up to St Andrews and have a look around, play a bit of golf.
Okay, noted. Okay. I have kept that in the notes. How did your love with football start? This you have already answered, so I'll skip the question. What does your normal weekend look like for you?
Sleeping in, usually. But yeah, watching too much football as well, probably. But yeah, I'm trying to do more now that I'm in London. I'm trying to do more outgoing things than just stay in my room and watch football. So there's lots to do here.
Okay. Your favorite sports documentary or movie that you would recommend everyone to watch?
Moneyball.
Okay, I watched that. It's a very good one. Your favorite TV series?
I tend to like really rubbish TV series, and not just like trashy TV, although it is trashy TV, but like really bad ITV detective dramas that no one else watches apart from your granny. But don't tell anyone I said that.
Sure. We won't. Sure. City or countryside?
Both. I like both at different points. I miss the city when I'm in the country, and I miss the country when I'm in the city. Yeah.
The countryside, yeah. It happens to us as well. Okay. Beer or whiskey?
I'll say whiskey.
Whiskey. Okay. Pubs or cafes?
Both. I like both. I think cafes are great during the day and pubs are great during the evening. I wouldn't go to a cafe at night, but I would go to a pub during the day. So yeah, maybe I'll say pubs overall. Okay,
the last one that we have is sleep the entire day or watch football.
I mean, watching football all day is what I do. So yeah, watch football all day.
Okay. Understood. So that was the rapid fire that we had for John. Thank you for all your answers, John, and for being so sporting. Now we can start with the detailed analysis of the teams that we have lined up. And
yes, let's go. So we are starting with dark horses, maybe for this season. Spurs.
Good question.
What do you think, John, about the? Yeah, what do you think about the summer transfers? Do you actually think they can be dark horses?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I did a video on this for TIFO, but I think that they will definitely be able to mount a title challenge. Whether or not that means they'll win, I don't know. But I think that they're definitely probably going to be the team to beat to get into third spot this time around. I think that Antonio Conte is obviously an excellent coach, and the way that he coaches is by doing these sorts of it's very similar to Marcelo Bielsa, in fact, but these very immersive approaches to games, lots of automatisms, lots of hyper management of situations to get the best out of his team. And I think usually in his second season, he has that continuity to really hit the next level. And I feel as though they brought in players who will allow them to hit that next level. So yeah, the players in front of us that we've got on the screen here, a couple of wing backs, which we know are going to be important for his system. He's going to have a lot of rotation in the wing back areas. We've got Richarlison, who's going to allow a rotation across the front line. They're going to play a 3-4-3 probably. You've got Longley, who is going to fit in as a left-sided centre-back, which is something that they've needed an option for there as well. And then obviously Yves Bissouma giving another option in that central midfield alongside players like Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, and also Rodrigo Bentancur as well. That looks like Fraser Foster to me, obviously a backup goalkeeper, so maybe not so important. But the others, I think, all really important cogs in the machinery that is going to be Spurs next season. The big question is how do you manage your wing backs if they're going to have rotational options in both of them? I know that Conte tends to sub both of his wing backs around the 60-minute mark, so that's obviously going to cause some controversy for FPL players because exactly
59
you lose points obviously depending on the timing, but I guess there's a good sense that both of those options on right and left will be getting minutes in most games, and they're just a really important cog in that attacking approach. So you'll expect them to pick up points both through assists and goals themselves as well.
And now that there are 5 transfers that the teams can do, those subs would be even more. The wing backs can be subbed around 57, 58 minutes. So that is one point that we'll have to keep in mind.
And then I think the other two, like obviously Richarlison will come in and will get goals. I suppose with Longley, it's still not clear how many minutes he'll get. I guess they'll rotate him as well, but I'm guessing that Spurs will be pretty high up in terms of clean sheets, so he'll definitely be an option as well there. And he's quite a decent progressive passer as well, so there may be extra points there to be had. People misunderstand what Conte midfielders are doing, and I think the Spurs fans are sort of always kind of asking for more creative options in there, but I think so much of Conte's system is about getting the creativity in other areas and getting the ball in the box from wide areas in particular. Obviously, like bringing someone like Bissouma in, who can, he can pick the ball up and carry it maybe better than Højbjerg and Bentancur. He's going to offer you something. But in terms of the creativity, like those midfielders aren't really, I don't think, like super important in terms of creativity. Now, there was questions about whether or not they could bring in a more sort of 10-like midfielder and then play the 3-5-2. But it seems as though Conte's not really done that at all at Spurs since he's been there. There was obviously rumours about Christian Eriksen as well. So you can get creativity through those areas, and I think you will see in some situations, for example, if Lucas Moura plays on the outside of that front three, then he does have a tendency to sort of drop into more central spaces. But yeah, I think most of the creativity is going to be coming from the front line and from the wing backs in that respect. So yeah, I don't think there'll be a huge amount of points for Bissouma, at least in the productive side of things.
I think the next slide would be better to explain what Jon was talking about because it has the formation that we are expecting that Spurs would start with. So this is where we can see all the players, and like Ramu also said that Bissouma was an important signing, he feels. But from the pre-season games that I saw, I noticed one thing, that they were quite good in winning the balls, and but the problem that they were having was playing it ahead. There was not too many passes going ahead, and that is one thing that I think bringing in Bissouma and playing him beside Højbjerg would do. But more about this and how you think will the team play, Jon, from you.
So for me, Spurs is very much about luring opposition players towards you to generate space to then attack with your front three and your wing back. So I mentioned before that Antonio Conte uses automations, and a lot of those automations are designed so that Spurs, from a goal kick, for example, can play the ball around the back and almost entice the opposition into trying to press them and win the ball back, but then having these different routes and routines that they can run through that will allow them to evade that high press. And then once they've done that, you've got the ball into space, and there's just much more space to exploit. So you'll see, for example, the ball going to maybe Christian Romero on the right hand side, and you'll see the centre back. So probably I suspect what you'll see from a kickoff is Dyer on one side of the 6-yard box, Romero on the other, and then Longley out on the left and maybe a little bit more advanced. But they'll be very, very deep because they just want to pull the opposition in as much as they can. And then what they'll do is they'll have like passing drills where they'll just move the ball into the wide area, try and get it into Kulusevski. Harry Kane can drop in and pick the ball up and almost play like a 10 as well. We talked about the creativity before. If the wide build-up doesn't work, then they'll try and get the ball back to Eric Dyer, who will then do these penetrative passes into the front three as well. So you're basically looking to see where the opposition is allowing you space, and you're using that space then to get the ball into that front three where they can then really, I mean, the three of them are just excellent at attacking space that is in front of them. So yeah, that's the Spurs approach. I suppose the big question is how will they respond to teams that sit deeper against them, because I think once teams recognise that if you go high against Spurs you just get killed by that front three, you'll start seeing teams sitting in lower blocks, and I think that's where Perisic, Spence, Sessegnon, Doherty, that's where they come in. Having Perisic, who we know is like brilliant with both feet, can get the ball into dangerous players in forward areas. So Harry Kane, in those situations, you don't want Harry Kane to drop out of the penalty box. So you've got to get your creativity from somewhere else. So those wing backs then will allow you to get those balls into the packed boxes and try and break them down.
And exactly, this is the thing that Jon is mentioning here. We saw it last season as well, that as soon as Conte was signed as the manager, there was a very good run that Spurs had. And then once the team figured out that how they play and they have to sit back, then they had a little dip towards the end of the season. And now signing, I think, Perisic and having Doherty fit and having Spence as a backup, I think it will help them, bridge that gap and, take that extra step that they need to compete for the title. Jon, last thing from you regarding Spurs would be, we have the games just beside the lineup. Who do you think would be the three players that, from FPL perspective,
the three players for Spurs
should look at?
Yeah, I think maybe just worth saying that actually a lot of the games where Spurs dropped points last season under Conte were some of the teams that you might not expect them to do that against. So like Brighton, they struggled with. Burnley, I think they dropped points against. There's a few teams who are decent pressers that cause them problems. So, and if you think back as well, Manchester City, I don't think Spurs didn't lose to anyone in the top four. I think, is that correct? Well, obviously.
No, Spurs won. I think in the 90th minute, Harry Kane scored that.
So I think that they will be competitive against teams who are at the top of the table, because those are the teams who are going to come out and leave space at the back to be exploited. So it's worth keeping that in mind when you're thinking about FPL. Like, are these teams going to sit deep and actually maybe frustrate Spurs? And could you actually feasibly get points? For example, I can see Chelsea there, the second game in. That could be a game where actually Spurs are able to get points from it. So that's worth keeping in mind. Obviously, Harry Kane is going to get lots of points. Heung-min Son is going to get lots of points. And then I suppose the next areas to look are the wing back areas. So I don't know how much. Yeah, again, it's about balancing off and trying to work out who is going to be playing where and whether or not any patterns emerge, so you can work out who to bring in and which players to switch. But I think, Spence is probably going to be able to play a lot of minutes, which might make him a fairly valuable option as well, just because of his age profile, and he's obviously very athletic, so he might be able to get a few more minutes out of him than, say, Perisic, who's obviously towards the twilight of his career.
I think great value add on Spurs and the players that we have. Now moving on to the favorite team of Jon, Leeds. and let's see what we can expect from Leeds this season.
Yeah, so the first thing to notice is 3 players here who've all played in Red Bull systems in Brendan Aronson, Rasmus Christensen and Tyler Adams. So the Red Bull style, or the Jesse Marsch style, or whatever you want to call it, style that we talk about. Yeah, sure. It wasn't really that obvious at the end of last season, and it essentially just came down to, I think, the players almost coaching themselves for long parts. So it was a sort of a mishmash of like some Jesse Marsch ideas, some Bielsa ideas, and then some goodness knows where they came from ideas. But obviously bringing in Red Bull players, the idea then was to have these individuals who know the system well enough to be able to do some of the pressing. And then beyond that, Mark Rocker, brought in from Bayern Munich after a disappointing spell there, brought in to play as a double pivot player to play penetrative passes. So obviously Red Bull football is all about direct and aggressive attacking through the middle. So someone like Mark Rocker would be useful there. And then the final player, Luis Sinistera, brought in from Feyenoord. A really interesting player, actually. Not someone that I ever thought would play for Leeds, but someone who I enjoyed watching in the Europa Conference League last season. Unfortunately, has got injured in pre-season, so not one to pick early on in the season. But he will play as one of the narrow tens, as they call them, in a sort of 4-2-2 or maybe 4-2-3-1.
Okay.
He'll play as I think he was playing on the right hand side when he got injured. So. Yeah, but he played on the left Feyenoord as well, so I don't know whether or not that will be something that we see as well. But he will be a ball carrier. He's the Rafinha replacement, so obviously got a lot of burden to shoulder there. But I think that once he gets up and running, he could be a fairly decent source of points. That's the signings they brought in. Maybe it'd be good to move on to the next slide to show the lineup then.
Sure, Jon.
Yeah, and as we move on, Jon, I think I also wanted to ask, like, as important as the new signings are, I think we should talk about one important player that has left the Leeds team. How do you think Calvin Phillips leaving this team is going to affect the whole?
Yeah, I don't think it will affect it that much, to be honest, because I think this is a very different style of play to what we were doing under Bielsa. And under Bielsa, we were playing a single pivot system where the single pivot was expected to just be a defensive destroyer. There wasn't really that much emphasis on them doing much in the build-up beyond sort of bounce passes to maintain possession. And the double pivot under Jesse Marsch is completely different. It's about a bit of shielding, but the weak parts of a Marcelo Bielsa system are the central spaces. The weak parts of a Jesse Marsch system are the wide areas, and so your double pivot don't really need to be that good defensively. Certainly not both of them. So Mark Rocker is not a particularly good defensive player, and it's not the end of the world. So I think being offered a lot of money for Phillips, and I think it was probably more valuable for us to take the cash at that point, although a lot of Leeds fans will find that a distasteful opinion, but here we are.
And to add to that point, Phillips got injured in the last season as well, but when he came back, he couldn't, we saw through the games that he wasn't at his best in this new system. And for the ones who don't know what Jon was referring to, the Red Bull style of play, so I just want to just throw a light on that regarding counter press. So what usually happens in the counter press thing is basically the team that attacks, if they have lost the position, you have like 5 seconds to regain the position. And once you regain that position in the 5 seconds, you have to take a shot on the goal in the next 10 seconds. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jon. But this is what I know about counter press from the Red Bull style of play. And like you said, the wide areas are the areas which are a big worry for Leeds. And we saw last season as well, during the end of the season, a lot of goals came from Junior Firpo side. So what do you think? Because left back hasn't been signed yet. So who do you think is going to play from the left side, and how do we tackle Leeds as a defensive unit? Because from FPL perspective, a lot of managers target Leeds. Whoever are playing against Leeds, we bring in players, those players who are playing against Leeds. So how do you see the defensive
It's
setup
worth saying,
and the
like,
left
some of the
side,
theoretical stuff. So
especially?
you're right about the counter pressing, but the general principle is that when you're playing as a counter pressing team, you want to be quite compact in possession, because if you lose the ball, then it's a lot easier for you to fall on the ball, off the ball. So what ends up happening is that, as you can see on the graphic there, it's a very narrow formation in the forward areas. So you've got your back four, but then you have your double pivot, and then 4 attacking players in front of them, and they'll often get very, very narrow around the ball. And so if the ball's on one side, then obviously the team tends to bunch up on that side, leaving a lot of space on the ball far side. And so that's why those fullback areas are quite exposed, because if you get teams that can avoid the counter press, they can play the ball into players on the other side of the pitch, and they're already 1-to-1 against a fullback. So in this system, you end up seeing fullbacks that are actually quite defensively minded. So on this is the formation that I've got for you here is the one that we started with against Cagliari this weekend. So there will be some changes, because this isn't the ideal starting 11, so it's worth saying that now. So I put Pascal Struijk in at left back. Pascal Struijk is a left-sided centre-back, and I think probably our best centre-back, to be honest, although in this system he is expected to play in a high line, and if you're playing in a high line and you're a little bit slow, it can be pretty bad. But all of our defenders are fairly slow, I think, so that could be a problem all season. But Pascal Struijk is a left-sided centre-back. And Rasmus Christensen, you could feasibly play him as a right-sided centre-back in a back three. So it's not necessarily about getting a huge amount of progression or attacking upside from those fullbacks, which is what we've come to expect in modern football. It's very much about having players who can manage those moments where you're going to be exposed if the opposition actually break your counter-press.
And it was also from the left back that Pascal
against
scored
Brighton.
that goal
That's right.
at the end of the season, right? Because of this against Brighton. So maybe that is. But talking about the game last night, I think Bamford scored and Aronson got 3 assists. So you can see on the right side, John, that 8 out of the 10 games for Leeds in the first 10 game weeks are rated as 2 out of 5 difficulty. So top 3 picks that you would like the FPL managers from Leeds, because Bamford is, suddenly he has become a very good asset for FPL.
It's hard to say.
So
like in pre-season, we've not really played against big sides. We've played against the best sides we've played against have been Crystal Palace and Aston Villa, who, like, regardless of what you think, it's not really a great test of how Leeds are going to be against the good sides. And also, we drew against Crystal Palace, I think, and we lost to Aston Villa. So I think Leeds are going to be really hard to judge this season, because I think so much of the Red Bull style is about rolling a dice and seeing where it lands. So I wouldn't go for defensive players. Although, having said that, I do think that one of our best sources of goals is going to be set pieces. So someone like Robin Koch, if you really want, could potentially produce set piece goals from heading situations. Or Diego Llorente scores a fair amount from set pieces as well. So again, that's a gamble of whether or not you want to lose your clean sheet, but maybe pick up points in set piece situations. So my advice would be go for forward options. Bamford is the obvious one. I think he'll be fine. He'll get goals. Jack Harrison has been quite good in scare quotes in pre-season. And he overperformed his expected goals by 50% last season, so got about 8 goals from about 4xg. Now, obviously, that there could be a regression there, but I think that he's got a good finish on him, and I think he's been playing okay, so it's worth gambling on that. Brendan Aronson is hard to judge. I don't know how productive he's going to be, both scoring and assisting. Rodrigo, I don't think will be playing too much, and again, he got a hat-trick on the weekend, but he's very hit and miss. He breaks the press, and so I guess the best option beyond that is probably Sinisterra when he's back, and I believe that he is expected to be back sooner rather than later. So I'd probably go with Harrison, Bamford, and then hold on for someone like Sinisterra. later on.
Okay. Wonderful. So we have Leeds covered. Now let's go to the team that we support, the two of us, Manchester United. And
so
get some opinions from
three interesting players, all of whom have played in Dutch football at some point in their careers. So Malacia, a left back who I really like, actually. I think he's been pretty handy in pre-season. It'll be interesting to see how he comes into the team. Obviously, he's competing with Luke Shaw at left back, so I expect that there'll be a fair amount of rotation between those two. Christian Eriksen, again, an interesting one in terms of the midfield. And we're going to talk about this in a minute, but I've done quite a bit of work on Erik ten Hag, his development, some of the ways that he's played in the past, and it's sort of hard to judge where he will play players, because he tends to play players in the situations and structures that he thinks suits them best. So he's not going to have a one-size-fits-all ideology. So we'll see different things. I noticed that Eriksen played as a 10. Was it yesterday that Manchester United played? Maybe the day before. I think he played as a 10 in that system. But then obviously there was a lot of youth players in that structure as well. So it's hard to read too much into that. Yeah, they played against Atletico Madrid, didn't they? So, that as well. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see where Eriksen will be brought in. Eriksen, the beauty of Eriksen is that he can be flexible. You can play him as an 8 in a 4-3-3, for example, 3-man midfield. You can play him as a 10. You could even play him as a deeper lying player. I think he played as a 6 for Inter at one point under Conte. So you've got that flexibility, and I suspect that's how he'll be used, because he's just a super creative option, isn't he? So probably brought on late in games, and perhaps to break down teams that are being a little bit more stubborn. And then Lisandro Martinez, the centre-back from Ajax, who everyone's been arguing about whether or not he's tall enough. Another good option. I think he really gives something in build-up and possession, and his passing is excellent. And he is the sort of player, obviously, that Ten Hag likes. I suppose the big question is, like, how does he fit into the Premier League? Playing for a club that's expected to perform at the highest level, but not being the best team in the league, as opposed to a team like Ajax, where they probably are the best team in the league, and he's probably not going to face as much maybe defensive opposition as he might do at Manchester United. But I'm happy to accept that Martinez will probably be fine. So that's sort of my take on the three of them.
So I think the next slide, you have it here. I think we had seen this from one of your videos itself.
TIFO videos,
yeah. So if you'd like to give us a run through of what.
Yeah, so I did a couple of
what to expect from Ten Hag.
Tactical setups that we'd seen. So the first one was Erik ten Hag in his first Champions League run, when they got very close to the final. And then 3 seasons later, they then came out with this lineup in front of you on the screen, which is very different to that. We've already touched on the midfield, the differences between the midfields. But you can see here that in this iteration that we've got on the board, so we've got Anthony, a Brazilian wide player who actually is an inverted winger in this system, because he is left-footed, but he plays still very, very wide in this sense. And then you've got Dusan Tadic on the other side, who had played as a false 9 in the earlier iteration of Ajax, but now he's playing as more of a sort of creative playmaker over on the left-hand side. You can see that with Anthony pulling out wide, Mazraoui, the right back, is able to invert his runs and get into those more dangerous situations towards goal. And we've got Daley Blind as well, who is another I guess an ex-Manchester United player who you'll know very well. Played as a left back last season, played as a left-sided centre back in the earlier iteration, an excellent passer of the ball, a really intelligent player of the game, and again he can sort of interchange here with Tadic in this system. I suppose the big question that we've got with Manchester United is that what's the relationship between the fullbacks and the wingbacks? The wingers going to be? So I'm just trying to think. So Manchester United have been playing Rashford on one side and Sancho on the other in pre-season, right? And then Malacia on the left and
Sancho on the right,
Dalot on the right. So yeah, I guess I'd be interested in hearing you guys' thoughts. You're the Manchester United fans, so how do you think that interchange is going to exist between the the fullbacks and the wingers on the two sides.
Yeah, I think Sancho playing on the right does give us more balance because there's a lot of creativity that's coming in from the right side. I personally feel playing Rashford on the right is wasting his talent because he is more suited towards making those runs from the left wing, and he can take on the players and make those darting runs from there and then put the ball into the box. I think that is how he terrorized those right backs, if I may say that. So that's how he was, and I think Ten Hag has realized that, and he has been playing him there. But I think the thing with Rashford is because he has now got a proper preseason in him. I think he is going to definitely have a better season than the last one. And Sancho naturally is very creative, so you play him anywhere, he's going to create those chances for the people who are playing with him. So never mind he plays on the left or on the right, or even you put him as a 10 if somebody if let's say Bruno or Eriksen goes off at 60 minutes or 70 minutes, you put Sancho at number 10, even then he will be able to create those chances for the strikers and the wingers who are playing along. So I think that is good, but I think fullbacks wise, I do not have a doubt in the quality of Luke Shaw, but I think from the right wing, I still need to see a bit more from Dello because he's not been that convincing to me, at least. I think, but fingers crossed, this season might be better because at least we have a proper right winger who's going to be supporting him all season, and having that really helps. So,
and we can see that in the preseason as well. Sancho and Dalot, the interplay between them, they were passing at the tightest of the spaces without even looking at each other. It was just one touch and play and pass. So from the right side, the interplay between the wing back and the winger has been good in the preseason. But now that Malaysia has just come in one game, in the last game that we played against Atletico, there were a lot of passes from Malaysia towards Rashford, and he made that runs, the inward runs that you were talking about, Ramu. So that was to be seen, but I hope as and when they play more games, there will be a lot better understanding. Shaw and Rashford already have that understanding between them, but Malaysia, I think, will take a little bit more time.
It seems as though it will be like what we've got on the screen, but mirrored, right? So Rashford is on the left and touchline hugging, and then you've got Sancho, who's more like the Tadic player, who's going to be a little bit more creative, going to be able to float around, maybe pull inside a little bit more, and then the fullbacks are just going to respond to that. So you'll have the interplay between, rather than Blint and Tadic, you'll have it between Dalot and Sancho on the other side, and then you'll have Malacia. I noticed him a lot in pre-season, inverting, coming inside as well, and just working the midfield areas as well. But getting into those more advanced areas as well. So it seems to make a certain amount of sense to me.
More on that Ten Hag style on the next slide, and we can cover that quickly before we move on to the predicted 11 for United. And this is again from one of the TIFO videos that Jon had presented. And I think United will, the 21-22 season will suit the United.
I think the point to take away from here is that what I said before, that Erik Ten Hag takes the pieces that are available to him and it's a sign of what good coaches do, right? Good coaches recognise the strengths of their players, and they put them in situations that can really realise those strengths, and they also are aware of the weaknesses of their players, and they do things to overcome the weaknesses and downplay situations where those weaknesses are going to occur. So I think that's the takeaway from this. You can see that the wing play increased in 21-22 when Allaire was playing as a striker, and he was able to get his wide players into wide areas, whereas in 18-19, where he's playing with a false 9, in Tadic, who's dropping in, and Van der Beek is getting in front of him, but you're getting the two wide players there. I think it's David Neres and can't remember who the you're getting those guys actually getting into much more narrower configurations, getting in behind and trying to go direct towards goals. So that's what I expect to see with Ten Hag. Like the best structure that he can get for the players that he has is going to be the one that he adopts.
So he will be flexible, and let's see the predicted lineup that we have for United and the top 3 assets that because It's not a good run of games, I would say. There are tough games like Liverpool in between, and then we have Leicester, Arsenal after that. So,
Yeah, good question.
top 3 assets from FPL perspective, John? And more so because if Ronaldo stays, then what happens to Martial? Because Martial has been performing very good in the pre-season.
Well, it's the £500,000 per week question, isn't it?
What do you think?
Well, let's assume that we don't know what's going to happen with the striker. Probably best to avoid picking the striker for the time being, I suspect.
Okay.
Who are the players who I think are going to thrive in this system?
Yeah. Okay.
I think that Sancho is going to be probably the player who's going to thrive in this system, because Sancho for me is very much a system player. He's a smart manipulator of space. I think under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, everyone was expecting him to do things and generate things just through going round players and being an incredible dribbler, but that's not who Sancho is. Sancho is a player who is just really good at quick passing, really good movement, really creative mind, and I think a Ten Hag system is going to benefit that. So I think you'll get some upside from him, and beyond that, it starts looking a little bit more complicated. But I think so. Bruno's an interesting one, right?
Maybe Bruno.
I definitely think that they will start with Bruno Fernandes up front. And I think if it doesn't work out, then we may see Donny van de Beek coming in there potentially, or obviously Eriksen as well. So again, like Fernandes might be a good option at the beginning in a gamble to see if he's going to work out. If not, might be worth getting Eriksen in sooner rather than later if you think that there's going to be situations where he actually does become a bit more of a starter player, I suppose. I don't know what you guys think about Eriksen as an option who's going to come off the bench and maybe succeed in like 30 minutes. I don't know anything about FPL theory these days, so you'll have to excuse my ignorance. But whether or not you think that having players who come off the bench is being a useful option, then I guess someone like Eriksen is going to be able to come on 30 minutes to go, and he will be able to unlock these defenses as well.
Yeah, I think we were also quite bullish about Jadon when we were thinking about United, and Martial has got a lot of eyes from the pre-season, but again, that is entirely dependent on Ronaldo. If he stays, then Martial becomes that lesser of a pick than what he looks like at this moment. And Rashford, I think he's a wait and watch for now, because he was good in the preseason, but that spark that we saw like 3 seasons ago, that is still missing from Rashford still. So I think we'll have to give him some time before we can rope him in our teams.
Yeah,
so
I'd agree with that.
If you're looking for United, I think Jadon is the one, and Dalot, I think we can target Dalot for the attacking returns, but I'm not quite sure
plays as well.
About the defense.
Like he's always good value for attacking upside as well. But yeah, it's really hard to read actually. It's funny looking at this lineup. But obviously, like Martial would be a decent option if he ends up being the 9. But you're sort of balancing off value there with like how much return you're going to get from him, right? So he might be a good like cheap option up front if he's playing regular minutes.
And now we have received some questions from the FPL community for you, John. And we can just cover it really quickly, not give too much time for that. But okay, so one, quite a few Arsenal fans were asking regarding Arsenal and the signing that they did at left back Zinchenko. So the question they have is Zinchenko, what is the favored position that he will play on? And if Tierney is fit,
it's a good question. I suppose if Tierney is fit, he's doing a lot of heavy lifting there, right? Because he does seem to get injured a lot. I'm sure that if Tierney is fit, they'll play him as the left back and maybe use Zinchenko as an option inside. But I actually quite like the way that at the end of last season, in fact, Arteta was using Tomiyasu as an inverted option and actually getting him really into really advanced areas. So Zinchenko could be a decent option for an FPL team if he's going to be getting into those more advanced areas.
Okay, the next one that we have is which team do you think would benefit the
this
most?
is tough, isn't it? I've just
Mid-season
written a
World
few
Cup
ideas
break
down.
that
So
we have?
the first thing I thought was like, is it going to be the teams that have the most players who aren't in the World Cup? Because they'll just get a nice break over the winter break. And then I thought, well, maybe it'll be the teams that have the most players in the World Cup because their players will be fit and will be still in form. And then I thought, well, look, is it going to actually benefit teams who do badly? Is there going to be some teams who are just in a horrendous run of form, and then the chance to have basically 2 months off in the middle of the season actually just might stop the rot as well? And does that mean that some of the teams who maybe have got a decent amount of momentum going into it are going to be the ones that lose out? So I haven't actually put any names to any of these teams, but that's where my mind went when I was thinking about how do you answer that question. Like, what's the impact going to be of having some players available, other players not? I guess Mo Salah and Luis Diaz are not playing. Is that right? Am I correct in saying that? So is that going to be good for them? Is that going to be good for Liverpool and having a fresh Mo Salah and Luis Diaz? And then I suppose Erling Haaland isn't playing either. So is that going to be good for City? Let's say that he still has these niggling injuries. Is it going to be the situation where actually having 2 months off again might just help him reset and help them out there as well?
So that was the list of questions that we had, John. A really big thank you for you to making some time for us and share your opinion and the thing you about the stats and the kind of opinion you have about how the teams will play. It would be really helpful for the managers when they plan to finalize now that the game week 1 deadline is very close. So we need to select the right players from the right teams. So I think this would be really helpful for all the managers.
It's my pleasure. I'm actually doing a draft
thank you for
FPL
making some time and
with
coming here.
some good friends. So I've not prepared anything. So hopefully this has helped me get my creative juices going. And I don't know. I guess Haaland
who'll be the first pick for you, John?
It feels like there's a few big names that you could get early on this time around. It felt like in previous seasons, like there's not really been too much. It's been Salah, and then like people thought Bruno Fernandes was going to be good after his good season, and then he wasn't. And De Bruyne is sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe not. And I'll have fun doing that tonight. I'll maybe have a look through the list later on.
All the best with that, John. Then thank you so much once again for joining, and to all the viewers who are watching, please continue to support us by watching all our videos and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, and look out for more interesting stuff coming up from us all throughout the season.